Hi everybody, welcome to my homestead and welcome to my channel. In this video, we're going to be talking about this new pamphlet that's come out, put out by the church about Islam and relations, or how we can understand Muslims and Muslims can understand us. So if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you end up liking it. Make sure to leave your thoughts and opinions in the comments below. Also make sure to share this with anyone that might find this interesting. So I've done a video about this before because it was Elder Bednar and Elder Gong that were at BYU, and they were kind of like introducing this pamphlet there. That was like the opening introduction of this pamphlet and what they wanted to accomplish with it. Well, now the church put out this article in the church newsroom, and it's available on the church website. So I thought it would be good to kind of just look through it. I haven't looked through it yet, so everything that I read will be new to me, at the same time as it's probably new to you unless you've already checked it out. One thing I wanted to point out, though, okay, I find it really interesting that the church is focusing on this right now, and it seems like within recent years there's been a kind of like a push to build better bridges and bonds with Muslims in the world. And I've speculated about that before because let's go to the world map, okay? Let's go to uh, whatever. Let's just go to the United States, just to start off with. So we know that there's a lot of movement right now in the world. Sorry, I don't know why it's giving me a hard time. Okay, here we go. There's a lot of movement going on in the world right now. A lot of people are migrating into different countries. We have a lot of people coming up from um, Central and South America into the United States. We have people mostly because of the Syrian civil war, and also now because of Afghanistan. People that are going into Europe and also into the United States, and people are moving around. On top of that, the population in Europe right now is kind of it's on a decline, sadly. They, for whatever reason, I'm not going to like really assign blame. Well, maybe a little bit. Uh, they've decided to stop having as many children, and maybe that's not by choice. I don't know. I have family in Portugal. My entire mom's side of the family is over here in Portugal. She was a convert to the church. She moved to the United States, but the rest of the family is still in Portugal, and they're Catholic, and or agnostic or atheist or whatever, just like the typical European. And I've connected with them on Facebook, and I watch them and on Instagram and stuff like that. And the sense that I get, and I got this sense when I was in Spain the first time in Spain on my mission back in 2004 to 2006, that there's kind of like this culture of um, not having families, I guess is how you could put it. I look at my cousins that are about the same age as me, and every time I get on Instagram or Facebook and they post pictures, it's always, always, always just soccer games or going to concerts or going on a vacation or being at the beach or being at some restaurant or cafe drinking wine. They're not members of the church. Um, it's always just like very fun filled, kind of like hedonistic type lifestyle, meaning seeking pleasure and just enjoying being an adult and not like without kids. Right? Which sounds nice, obviously, in one respect. Excuse me. I wouldn't trade my kids for the world. But this is like, it seems to me like this is kind of a common problem across Europe. It's very prevalent, and it's kind of like made its way over here to the United States. And the United States isn't as bad off as Europe is, but it's not looking that good. And then Japan is really in trouble. So anyway, the point is, when I was in the army, we had a briefing just kind of talking about It was like a general briefing to kind of talk about the state of the world in terms of, and this isn't like, I can share this. It's nothing like classified or anything like that. They were just talking about the Islamic world and potential problems in the future or changes in the world. Because as you have this population up here in Europe kind of dying off, um, not having children, not replacing the workforce and the population, uh, at the same time that that's going on, you have a lot of people from these Islamic countries, North Africa, Syria, probably Afghanistan, probably others. They're moving in and they have higher fertility rates than Europeans do. They're having a lot more. They're having more children, and so their population is growing. And it's almost like, they're going to be replacing the Europeans in their own countries, and that's something that the briefing kind of talked about, is that the future is looking kind of dire for Europeans, that they're essentially going to um, cease to be, or cease to be a majority in their country. So with that in mind, and also thinking about the second coming, and we know that it's not just going to be, members of the church, and not just going to be Christians. It's going to be all good people of all faiths, and even people not of faith, agnostics, that that live virtuous lives, that are at least living a terrestrial law. They're going to be moving on into the millennium with us. So my thoughts are that we have this kind of changing landscape. For one, we're getting closer to the millennium too, and the church, I think, is getting ready to essentially have more contact with Muslims. Um, we have a lot that are coming to the United States. I did a video about that that one article that was talking about like 600 Afghans that were coming to Utah alone. We've done videos about the Pashtuns in Afghanistan, that now, because Afghanistan is going back to Taliban rule, a lot of them are fleeing the country, and they claim to be and are recognized by rabbis in Israel, um, of Israelite descent. So they've been there for a long, long time, and now, because of recent circumstances, they're leaving. And so they're probably going to be coming in contact with the church. Same thing with just Muslims in general leaving these Arab and North African nations and coming to Europe, where we have temples and meeting houses. And when I was on my mission, we came in contact with um, a lot of Muslims, mostly from Morocco, but also Libya and Egypt, and basically all over the place. Okay, so more and more contact with the church, and it's important. It's important because there is also scattered Israel among the Muslims. Like I just said, among the Pashtuns, also among the Kurds. Um, there's a belief that they are also descended from Israel. And there's other groups, and then just generally speaking, there is Israelite blood mixed in with the Arab and Islamic nations. Okay, so probably now more than ever, it's important to get ready to not to you know understand each other more, and allow for better relations and understanding, and to not push them away, because now it might be their time, or becoming their time, that they may start to embrace the gospel little by little, and then definitely into the millennium, I would imagine. Okay, so what's been going on in the church? Before I go through any of this pamphlet here, I looked up. Basically, what I did is I did a search for Muslim on the church website, and I painstakingly I went through the many, many, many tabs. And interestingly, it's only within the last, um, probably since, I think, 2016, that you see all these articles coming up talking about the church doing things with the Muslim community. Uh, but I want to start it off. First, I found this interesting statement of the First Presidency. Statement of the First Presidency regarding God's love for all mankind. This was back in 1978. Okay. Spencer W. Kimball. And I just want to read part of this. Based upon ancient and modern revelation, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints gladly teaches and declares the Christian doctrine that all men and women are brothers and sisters, not only by blood relationship but common mortal progenitors, but also as literal spirit children of an eternal Father. The great religious leaders of the world, such as Muhammad, Confucius, and the reformers, as well as the philosophers, including Socrates, Plato, and others, received a portion of God's light. Moral truths were given to them by God to enlighten whole nations and to bring a higher level of understanding to individuals. This is a key concept because I think the reality of this world is that the truth, you know, the covenant people, it's hard for it to survive in this fallen state. And a lot of times it takes miraculous means in order for the true church and God's people to survive in this world. And we're not going to know the full details until after this life, like how many are just scattered all over the world and what numbers and what proportions and stuff like that. But the Lord, even though He allows us to live in this fallen condition, He does give light to the nations for their eternal progression. And I think that would include Islam. Even though they don't accept Christ at the moment as the Savior, and for who He is, I think that they've been prepared in their own way uh, for after this life. And then again, so like those that are in the spirit world, who knows how many of them uh, were able just to make the transition because through missionary efforts or just personal spiritual progression, they already have this foundation of Islam and what they learned there. They have an understanding of Israel and the covenant people and the similar beliefs. And then maybe on the other side it's easier for them compared to other places to embrace the gospel. And then the same may be true in the millennium. Okay. So this is an important concept that there is light and God gives knowledge and light to whole nations. Okay. He's working with all the nations. Okay, so this one, I think, now, I don't know why they don't just put the date on all of these. Some of them there is the date, but I think this was back, oh gosh, this one might be 2016. I'm not sure. I'm not going to read through all these. I just want to read like the titles just to give you an idea. But there's nothing like this before, say 2015. Okay, so this is like a recent phenomena. This is a recent push in the church. And I'll show you here. So Mormons serve Muslims to break the Ramadan fast. Okay. Church offers chapel for worship to members of Islamic community. This is in Bellevue, Washington. Okay, this is in 2017. Interfaith musical event on Temple Square celebrates diversity. And a big part of that was there were a bunch of Muslims there. See, local Jewish, Muslim, and Sikh leaders. Okay, Tennessee young women build interfaith bonds with Muslim friends by holding a ward Hijab drive. This is in 2019. Mormons join Muslims to ring in the Persian New Year. Okay, that's interesting. That's also in 2017. Okay, 2018. Mormons, Muslims, and Methodists serve together as one community. 2019. Muslims and Christians build bridges of unity in Georgia. 2019. Building a community of faith. Excuse me, and this talks about Islam and stuff like that. Okay, an article by Dan C. Peterson, Understanding Islam. And this is the guy I really like him. He is part of the Interpreter Foundation. You can look up their YouTube channel. If I remember it, I'll put it down in the description below. But if not, it's called Interpreter Foundation. He is great. He's a scholar. He's a professor. So anyway, you have this Ensign article in 2018 called Understanding Islam. Now, excuse me, in the church magazines, specifically the Ensign, there are a couple articles back like in the 70s that I found, but not very many. Okay, you're basically seeing everything that I found, with the exception of just a couple things back in the 70s when you do a search for Muslim. Okay, right here, 2019, Muslims and Christians in Singapore collaborate in historic iftar. Muslim women interfaith event. This is in 2020 now. Okay, here's the article. I still have the highlights on it. This is the article that I did the video about last time. Now this is this year, or no, sorry, this is we're in 2022 now, Jared. This was last year, October 2021. Elders Bednar and Gong discuss how to better understand Muslims. We have this general conference talk in October 2021. This has to do with Islam. Let's see, Islam. I can't remember exactly. Yeah, she talks about stuff that's been done in Muslim countries, basically. Afghan relief and Ramstein. Ramstein's a really nice base, by the way. I went through there on the way back from Afghanistan, and as it is throughout all the military, the Air Force has the best stuff, the nicest facilities. Ramstein is probably the crowning jewel of the Air Force, from what I've seen. Anyway, and then this year, 2022, this is in the Leahona. Young Queensland volunteers make light work of helping others. And this has to do, see, Muslim friends in Queensland. Okay, so for the last several years, the church has been really focused on reaching out to Islam and making it known through church publications. Okay, the most recent of which, well, aside from this right here, well, I don't know, because I think this came out today or very recently. This is probably the most recent, because this is now available online on the church website. Muslims and Latter-day Saints, beliefs, values, and lifestyles. Okay, let's just read a little bit of this together, just to get a sense of what's going on here. I will zoom in. The intent of this pamphlet is to introduce Muslims, followers of Islam, and Latter-day Saints, members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, to each other. At a time when societies and religious believers want and need mutual understanding, this pamphlet signifies a conscientious effort to provide dignity and tolerance for Muslim and Latter-day Saint believers, represents hours of conversation and study by religious scholars and others, including Muslims from diverse backgrounds. It recognizes that no individual scholar or religious imam or group of scholars or imams can represent all of Islam. Does not interpret the Quran. It does seek to understand some Islamic tenets and practices as explained by Muslim scholars and religious leaders, and to portray these tenets in a positive and engaging manner. Illustrates common themes found in Islamic and Latter-day Saint beliefs and practices, but does not make judgments regarding these beliefs or practices. Seeks to provide mutual understanding while requesting forbearance and patience if any of its words or efforts fall short of that intent. Okay, let's zoom back out. Origin of Islam, origin of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, interfaith cooperation. During the past 50 years, Muslims and Latter-day Saints have been engaged in interfaith initiatives throughout the world to provide relief for the poor, strengthen families, and build supportive communities. This pamphlet briefly presents some of the beliefs, values, and lifestyles that facilitate these cooperative efforts. Okay, let's move on. Mutual respect. Okay. Okay, Muslims latter. Islam teaches, excuse me, Islam teaches esteem for other religions, including Christianity, rather than teaching Muslims to compete in doctrine with people of other faiths. The Quran says to compete with each other in righteousness. In the end, when all return to God, He will tell you the truth in the matter of your differences. Latter-day Saints. Latter-day Saints are taught to show respect and love for people of other faiths. In the 1978 church's first presidency, sorry, in 1978, the church's first presidency declared, uh, the great religious teachers of the world, such as Muhammad, received God's light. This is what we were just reading. Moral truths were given to them by God to enlighten whole nations and to bring a higher level of understanding to individuals. Okay, let's see. Profession of faith in God. Let's just skip that. The posterity of Abraham. Okay, let's take a look at that. Muslims. Muslims believe that Ibrahim, or Abraham, upon him be peace, AS, is sorry, that wasn't respectful. I'm sorry. I'm sorry if any Muslim. It's we don't usually say peace be upon him. That's one of our differences. Is a prophet who plays a prominent role in Islam as an example of faith and obedience to God. He never worshipped other gods or idols. He brought his son Ishmael to Mecca. Abraham was was responsible for building the Kaaba in Mecca for the worship of the one God. Islam teaches that Abraham's character and his willingness to submit to God's will gave him a special place as a friend of God. And if you don't know what the Kaaba is, I'm sure you will if you just see a picture of it. Let's go to images here. It's this black cube building that this is what Muslims all around the world, when they pray, I don't know how many times a day it is, if it's five, I think it's maybe 5 times, I'm not sure, but they face toward Mecca, and specifically toward the Kaaba. This is the building that they believe Abraham built. There's actually like a black stone. It's a meteor that they feel is very special, and they, they all like touch it and stuff. I watched a really incredible documentary. I don't know if it was on Netflix, but it was all about the Hajj, which is you're expected at least once in your life, if you're able, to make pilgrimage to Mecca and do all the things that you're expected to do here. Part of which is to walk around the Kaaba 7 times, but there's also other kind of like ritual type things that you do. Um, and I'd argue that you kind of feel the spirit when you watch that, because you can tell that there are many that are very spiritual, and they're really having spiritual moments, and it's not just, you know, tradition or whatever. It's really heartfelt. Okay, Latter-day Saints. Latter-day Saints believe that Abraham was an exceptional prophet and example of obedience. He was a seeker of happiness, peace, and knowledge. Through his righteousness and faith in God, Abraham secured blessings for his posterity and became the father of many nations. God promised Abraham that his posterity would receive his truth and teach it to the peoples of the world in the latter days. Okay. Prophets. Muslims believe that both the Prophet Muhammad and Jesus Christ are, I don't know what this means, SAW and AS. I'm not sure. Okay. Are direct descendants of Adam through Abraham. Muhammad was sent by God to reform the Abrahamic religions. The revelations given through the Prophet Muhammad re-established faith in one God and principles of righteous living. Muslims believe in Old and New Testament prophets, and it is a central belief of the faith that the Prophet Muhammad is the final prophet. Latter-day Saints believe that God leads his children through prophets. God called prophets in ancient days, as recorded in the Holy Bible, but the gospel of Jesus Christ was lost centuries ago and had to be restored. For this reason, God called Joseph Smith, peace be upon his name, as a prophet to restore Christ's church and gospel. Latter-day Saints believing in continuing revelation from God through an unbroken chain of prophets from 1820 to the present day. Okay. Jesus Christ. Both Muslims and Latter-day Saints believe in the miraculous birth of Jesus Christ. They recognize that he is a messenger of God and refer to him as the Messiah, or Al-Masih, the Anointed One. Both acknowledge that he performed miracles during his lifetime, and both accepted that he can make intercession for the righteous at the day of judgment. Muslims regard Jesus Christ as the sinless son of Mary, uniquely having a mother but no father. He was a prophet of God, but not the Son of God. God strengthened him with the Holy Spirit. He prophesied the coming of Muhammad. He was raised unto God alive before his enemies. Sorry, he was raised unto God alive before his enemies could kill him on the cross. Most Muslims believe that Jesus will return at the last days to help restore global peace and justice on earth. Latter-day Saints regard Jesus Christ as the sinless, only begotten Son of God, born of the Virgin Mary. His suffering in the garden and death on the cross atoned for the sins of all who accept his grace. He overcame death and enabled the eventual resurrection and immortality of all people. In the last days, he will return to usher in 1,000 years of peace, and then he will judge all humanity according to their faith and good works and by the intent of their hearts. So you can see here that they do have a lot of the groundwork laid, you know, um, as far as uh, Christ having a mother but not a father, that being a miraculous event, that he's a Messiah, although different the way that they see it from the way that we see it, in that he'll return in the last days. So they're expecting that he'll come again in the last days. Not again, probably not in the same way that we do, obviously, but it's a similar belief. So they're not going to be surprised, I don't think, when he comes. Although, I mean, the armies that are laying siege to Jerusalem, I guess if they recognize that it's him, they're going to wonder why he's destroying them. I don't know. I'm not going to like comment on that because I don't know. But what I can say is, like I said before, in the millennium, and then also after this life, they'll have enough of a concept and understanding and foundation from which they can continue on and hopefully embrace the gospel. So it may just be that it just they're at a different progression rate or just at a different stage or whatever the case may be. We'll find out probably in the millennium or after this life. Okay, scriptures, prayer, helping those in need, fasting, physical health, chastity, the role of women, family, holy places, life after death, love of God and humanity, religious diversity, and then special thanks. So I'll probably read the rest of this on my own. I would invite you to read it as well, and try and view Muslims as children of Abraham. I think for us Latter-day Saints, that's maybe the best way to view it. That, even though they didn't descend through Israel, uh, they're still children of Abraham, and it doesn't mean that they can't at some point be grafted in and also inherit the same blessings. And because they're descended from Abraham, I do think that makes them special as well. And it's interesting. It's very interesting. So you'll have to let me know what you think below in the comments. Let me know your thoughts, opinions, if anything struck you. But I think that this is a really important thing that's going on. And again, I think it's a sign of the times. I think it's a sign of the times because we're only seeing this much stuff happening within the last several years, since like 2016, right? So things are happening right now that haven't happened before. In other words, this is just one of the many, many things that I feel indicate that we're getting close to the millennium. Okay. All right. So if you haven't already, please make sure to subscribe, like this video if you liked it. Make sure to share it. Also, make sure to love Muslims, care about them, be open, be understanding, and don't be judgmental of them. And I'll talk to you guys later.